Running your first marathon soon? Or maybe your 10th? Either way, I'm sure you've Googled some questions you've had about the marathon itself. Don't worry, I did too. Today, I'm going to be answering some of the most Googled questions about marathons. Let's get into it. Okay, let's start with common questions that get asked pre-marathon training. The first question we have here is, how long should I train for a marathon? A general rule for the length of a marathon training program, particularly if you're running your first one, is having it around 16 to 20 weeks in length, though some people may be able to complete one in less time. The main component when determining the length of your marathon training program is allowing enough time for your body to adapt to the training load itself, usually increasing mileage by around 10% each week. The next question is, should I have run a half marathon before training for a marathon? No, you don't need to have run a half marathon in order to start marathon training, though it can be extremely beneficial if you come from a running background or have had a consistent running routine, say for the past 6 to 12 months. During your marathon training, you'll likely run the half marathon distance on multiple occasions, though it can be fun to include a half marathon race as part of your training. One thing to be mindful of is not putting it too close to your race day and ensuring it aligns with your current running goals. So how do I know when I'm ready to run a marathon? Now, there isn't a specific distance or calculation to prove that you can run a marathon, and the answers you'll get will differ from runner to runner. My personal response to this question is being able to run consistently for 6 months, which is what I did when I ran the 2023 New York City Marathon last year. Being able to run consistently for this period and also remain injury-free are two determining factors when it comes to my answer here. Though, if I had my time over and got to run my first marathon again, I would actually go and establish a 6-month consistent running routine before even starting marathon training. Another common pre-marathon question that we get is, what gear do I need to train for a marathon? You don't need all the running gear to train for your first marathon. An essential is your shoes, particularly if you're choosing to run in carbon plated shoes or non-carbon plated shoes. A running belt can be helpful in holding small items during your run, good socks to prevent blisters, and I know toe socks worked amazing for me, running gels and electrolytes as you get into your longer runs, as well as comfortable and breathable running apparel. Be sure to use this gear during your training to work out what you will fuel yourself with for the marathon and what you'll be wearing for the race. Now, let's get into some questions that are asked around marathon training. How far should I run before my marathon? This is another question that can be debated between runners, but ultimately, it depends on the individual themselves and also what their exact running goals are. Your training plan should also not see you actually run the entire marathon distance either. Don't do that to yourself. My answer to this question actually shifts focus to training itself, and if you're able to consistently get out for your training sessions without getting injured or having many setbacks. Ultimately, I find training itself the defining factor to working out if you'll be able to run a marathon. So personally, I feel like being able to consistently train for your marathon is the defining factor to answering this question. When training for my first marathon, my longest run was 30 kilometers. When training for my second marathon, my longest run was 33 kilometers. Both times I was able to train consistently without many setbacks or injuries. How do I fuel for a marathon? This too can vary from person to person, and there's no direct answer to this one. Some sports dietitians recommend consuming 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates every hour for the first 3 hours of your marathon. Then, upping that to 60 to 90 grams for every hour afterwards. But it's completely up to you on how you'll fuel yourself for your first marathon, and this is largely determined from your training, because this is where you get to experiment with the nutrition and what works for your body, whether that's gels, energy chews, carbohydrate drink mixes, electrolyte drink mixes, or a combination of them all. Be sure to nail your hydration and nutrition before you get to the starting line of your marathon. Should I still train if I'm sick? Now, you don't usually go to work if you're sick, and you should treat your running and your marathon training the exact same way. You won't gain any improvement if you're out there running sick. Keep in mind though, if you do miss a few sessions during your marathon training, to ensure you gradually build back up to the mileage you were running before getting sick or having a setback. You don't want to end up getting injured or find yourself being more sick than before, as a result of getting out there too early. Do I need to do strength training for a marathon? It seems this one is also quite controversial when it comes to the running community, so again, I'll provide my own personal opinion and answer to this question. Strength training can be important for minimizing your risk of getting injured during your marathon training, and also strengthening particular parts of your body that may be at risk of getting injured over the course of a marathon training program. But you don't need to be going crazy hectic in the gym trying to lift all the weights in there. Even body weight strength training can do you worlds of good. I personally do strength training once a week when it comes to my marathon training program. Now for the fun part. Some of the most Googled questions when it comes to marathon race day. Where do I go to the toilet if I run a marathon? Don't worry, I too was also Googling this madly when I was training for my first marathon. But if you're running in a particular marathon event, there will likely be toilet stalls stationed across the marathon course that will allow you to go and do your business if needed. Check if the event you're running in has a website or an app where you can see what amenities will be available on the course and where the toilet locations will be. But if you're just training for a marathon for fun and deciding to go out there and run the distance, then I'll leave that up to you working out where you'll go to the toilet. What should I wear for the marathon race? Wear what you've been training in. One of the most common phrases you'll hear from the running community is nothing new on race day. Don't be tempted to buy those new shoes or those socks in the expo ready to wear on race day. Stick to what's worked for you during your training. Lastly, I'd also recommend investing in some anti-chafe cream or balm, particularly if you have any hot spots when you're out there for your runs. What is hitting the wall in a marathon? The dreaded wall is something that all of us runners either training or who have run marathons think about. Hitting the wall is a condition of sudden fatigue and a loss of energy. This is usually a result of the depleted glycogen stores in your muscles and in your liver, which supply you energy throughout your marathon. It's also important to know that hitting the wall can be either mental, physical, or a combination of both. That's why it's so important to hydrate and to fuel yourself properly when it comes to your marathon race. Don't let this scare you though, just be mindful of it and pay particular attention to your nutrition, please. Is it okay to walk during a marathon? Of course. Don't feel bad if you suddenly need a walking break during your marathon race. You aren't any less of a runner out there as you're still completing the exact same distance everyone else out there on the course is. If you're looking to solely walk your marathon, be sure to check for any cutoff times your event may have. So there we have it. I hope you found these answers to some of the most Googled questions about marathons useful. Have a question that wasn't answered in today's video? Leave a question down in the comment section below and we'll continue the conversation down there. I'm Jack, and I'll see you next time. Catch ya.